Originally, I wasn't going to call this video. Mistakes I made while making my web series. I wasn't going to call it that because I found like the title was too pessimistic. And I'm not trying to be a pessimistic person. It's how I'm wired, but I don't want to be a pessimistic person. I don't enjoy being a pessimistic person. Which is to say, maybe I do enjoy being a pessimistic person a little bit, but not too much. The point is, I was going to call this something like what I learned from making my web series, or maybe even reflecting on making my web series. And then I could talk about all the things I did right. And maybe that wouldn't be, I don't think that would be a very good video, me talking for 10 minutes about the things that I did right. And, you know, I remember when I finished a show, I did a Fringe Festival show here in Ottawa, which is just this little theater performance you put on in the summer. I remember after I did the show, I did feel an immense sense of like, oh my god, there were so many things I could have done better, should have done better, and, you know, ultimately it's hard to shake that sense of failure. I think the only thing I've learned in that time is maybe just to let yourself enjoy a little bit of accomplishment before you start reflecting on the elements that you could have done better. So, mistakes I made while making my web series. So, in case you don't know, in case you're one of those freaks that just click this video off the recommended tab, I made a web series. It was called Centerside. My number one priority before I made this thing was to finish it. I knew too many big projects started by people on the internet, random people on the internet, people I liked, people I enjoyed, just never got finished. They would start it with such enthusiasm and vigor, and then they would never tie the knot or complete it or whatever.
Or worse, they would keep doing it forever with no end in sight. Equally as bad.
So, very unfortunate. Very sad. So I wanted to finish it. I wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, I would finish it. And hopefully, I would finish it in a timely manner. So anyway, the most important thing that I think you need to keep in mind, finish what you start, unless you don't want to. You know, especially as a child who consumed a lot of content from Newgrounds, where people were announcing series all the time. Like, I'd say like the vast majority of those series never actually got finished.
Except Sonic RPG Episode 10, which took 15 years but eventually came out. It's pretty good, actually.
So, when I announced the web series, I said it would be done in like 3 months. Big mistake. Big mistake. It was not done in 3 months. And in fact, it took like a year. No, it took like a year and a half. Too long. I wanted the web series to be concise, to be kind of a chapter of my life, and then Tundra, my favorite place to establish a permanent settlement for human beings to live. So yeah, I said it would take 3 months. It took 4 times longer than that. Right off the bat, that's the biggest mistake. So what should I have done differently? Okay, biggest thing, biggest lesson I'm gonna take away from this experience. Before I announce anything, before I even announce it, it's gonna be halfway done, at least, okay? So if I announce an 8-episode web series, the first 4 episodes are gonna be made before I announce it, okay? I'm pretty sure almost every deadline I made for myself, I missed. So, not again, all right? Another mistake I made. I listened to the fans. That's right. I read your comments. Now this isn't strictly a mistake. I say this a little bit provocatively. Like, obviously, the whole reason you're doing it is to get fan feedback and read what people are saying. But the issue with constantly consuming what people are saying about your own content is that if you're in the process of making the content while people are saying stuff about it, it's going to influence the content. Now, I'll give you an example. There is a character that gets, I don't know, quote-unquote killed off in episode 3 of the web series, right? And the plan was to keep the character killed off until the very last episode where they come back. However, because people wanted to see the character come back earlier, I did an episode where it's revealed that the character is still going around doing stuff, essentially. Which does, I think, take away a little bit of the sting, the reveal at the end. So just structurally, I think, you know, art is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship, and I am Hitler. We're gonna cut that. You know, it's kind of like Shakespeare if he was like writing Romeo and Juliet act by act and releasing it act by act. And then the audience was like, oh, what a cute couple, I hope it works out for them. If Romeo dies, we riot, right? And then he kills off Romeo and Juliet. He's gonna kill off Romeo and Juliet, and he's like, well, I don't know about this. Everyone's gonna hate me after this. So he just he writes in, you know, Romeo and Juliet surviving. It's a very different story, probably wouldn't be as good. That being said, just between you and me, I'm not a big fan of that Shakespeare fella. It didn't dramatically change how the story progressed, but it did make me add some details that I think probably harmed the overall story. Thing is, yes, this is just a silly YouTube web series, but it's also something I take extremely seriously. And so that's why it's important to, you know, art is something I've decided to dedicate my life to. So I intend on improving my craft and not stagnating in any way.
Please forgive the sniffing in this video. I was doing cocaine.
So why am I making this video? Because most of you probably aren't going to be able to relate to it, right? I mean, no one wants to see a web series from me. I'm a creative type, but I don't have an audience yet. My web series isn't going to get views, so this is a useless... No, wrong. You gotta act like your web series is going to get views. Because I didn't think my web series would get views. The things that I was working on would get views, and they happen to get views. Now, I mean, I'm not saying it'll happen, it's very unlikely, but like making it like people are going to see it is helpful to get people to see it. I'm a wise man. I'm a wise man, and I say wise things. My web series, it was a one-man show, for the most part. I did everything. I played every character. I did all the editing. Now, by the time I was 6 episodes into it, I was getting a little burned out. Every time I edited a new episode, I was taking longer and longer because the episodes were getting more complex. My laptop was slowing down and overheating when I was doing it, when I was making the stuff. So I bought a better one, and then it was still taking a week worth of editing for one episode. Now, it was getting frustrating for me because I was taking more than a month sometimes between episodes, and I didn't want to take that long, essentially. So I eventually caved, and I got an editor to help me, and that made the last few episodes look really nice, but take a lot longer, which was, I think, in the grand scheme of things, kind of, I want to say ironic, because I was trying to do one thing and it resulted in the opposite thing happening, but now irony has no meaning anymore, so it was a little bit ironic. So this brings me to the homemade aesthetic I had in the first few episodes. I didn't mind that aesthetic, and in fact, I mean, I know a lot of people kind of they definitely didn't mind the fact that there was green screen artifacts or whatever, but I definitely could have done some things technically better. I could have gotten rid of the green screen artifacts. I could have made everything, I could have made the technical details better, but at the end of the day, when I look back on what I did, I'm not so concerned with the technical details. I'm concerned with telling the big picture story. The thing is, I'm not really that detail oriented. I'm very broad strokes oriented, and I don't know, I just kind of when I'm trying to get every detail right instead of focusing on the big picture, I get very impatient, and I'm not happy with that. which is, you know, it's a weakness and it's a strength. On one hand, it's a strength because I can put out a lot of big concepts fairly quickly. On the other hand, I can't really get something super detail-oriented. Whoa, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, Toto. I do think me being the primary driver of work is the most important thing. Like, if I am asking somebody for either music or editing or anything along those lines, I want to be sure that at the end of the day, I can always be the person that's putting more effort into the project to get it out, instead of me having to wait on anybody else to do it. So that's important. I need basically autonomy in my own personal endeavors. And what that means is, I think stuff that I'm working on is going to be not detail oriented, but hopefully I will also try to, just myself, you know, be able to learn some tools that can help me be more detail oriented. And if I do work with people, you know, I'll work with people in a way where I know the timeline and I don't keep people waiting too long. Hopefully, because near the end of the series, for sure, I was losing momentum with what I started. And it would have been very different if I had just been able to go bang, 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 end it, instead of taking too long. You know, and get it done in 5 months, as opposed to 16, 17 months, however long I took.
As a rule of thumb, I don't ever want to work on one project for longer than a year.
I'm also, you know, I'm not very good at using my tools, my fan base, to like help. Because there was plenty of people throughout the whole series that would have been ecstatic to contribute backgrounds as art or music or something along those lines, and I would have been happy to pay them for it. But there was just something between me and doing that was kind of getting in my own way there. So, you know, if I have the opportunity to have people like draw backgrounds for my web series, then, you know, that's something that would be great to have, instead of me having to do these detail-oriented things that I'm not super interested in. So that's just generally something I need to work on. You know, obviously I like the strength of being broad strokes oriented, but getting some people to help with the details in a way that doesn't extend the period that we're working on it for too long would be a good thing to do. And I should say the series would not be possible without the editor. The last few episodes especially, just so much stuff is going on that I would not be able to have done myself. So, some background. After filming every episode, I would be put into a pretty bad place. The first episode of Centricide, I remember being very stressed about, you know, finding costumes for all the characters. The second episode, while I was filming in my house, in my parents' house, it was so hot. I was like on the verge of tears most of the time, like, and the NCOM's mouth, mask kept falling off, which was extremely angering for me. Didn't like that at all. The third episode took me so long to edit, and I was just so unhappy. And I remember taking days and days of editing the third episode, and I was like, I cannot keep doing this. But I did keep doing this. The fourth, fifth, sixth, all the other episodes I edited myself. And it just took longer and longer every time because the episodes were getting more involved. And yeah, I don't know, it was not a good time. I had a really bad time editing those episodes. So then, that brings me to episodes 7 and 8. Now, those episodes on their own would be massive challenges in themselves. But what I wanted to do was just get the web series done, release part 7 and part 8 simultaneously. And that was so long ago now, which just shows how long editing 8 took. But yeah, I just wanted to get it out. But we ended up having to split part 8 into 3 parts. And then releasing each part took like over a month for each part. So it was like a very long time, and I was getting quite impatient. But if you look at 8, and you look at 8 in the context of the rest of the web series, then I do think it's a marvelous end, and I'm quite satisfied with it, actually. I'm quite satisfied with how the series wraps up. That being said, I'm not satisfied with how long it took. So, you know, it's hard to say. The reason, by the way, that, you know, I always felt the need to make every episode I released better than the last episode. And that's what the comments were saying a lot. Like, in episode 4, there was a musical number, and it was professionally produced by one of my friends, Grandbeats. People could see the quality of the series was improving. So I was reading the people saying the quality of the series was improving, and I wanted to keep that going. I wanted every episode to be better than the last. So I kept going, and, you know, I released episode 5. And by the time I released episode 5, I was checking the comments, and I was checking like what people were saying, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, episode 5 isn't good. Like, it's like I'm very disappointed by episode 5." And I thought, "Oh no, like I must have done something wrong." In retrospect, episode 4.5 and 5 were the most popular episodes of the series. They were the ones people were kept coming back to watch. But because at the time I was thinking, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 5-minute chunks of the web series. It's going to be better for me. I'm going to spend less time on it, and it's going to be better for the people. They're going to get more of it, and I can make like these more focused little tales within the story, rather than, you know, spending a bunch of time, people losing interest, and then releasing like a larger episode that's like 20 minutes long. So that's what I should have done. But because people were disappointed with the length, I was like, all right, well, I guess I gotta try to do it the other way. What I really should have done was just, I should have kept it short, done 5-minute little bursts, and called it a day. Yeah. So I never was in a place where I was actually bored of the web series, but I did get to a point where filming and editing was like a bit of a chore. And you never want to be in that position, you know, because you never want to forget you're doing something that you love and is coming from your brain and that you want to make really good. So you should always feel passionate about it. And I never want to be in a position where I'm feeling like something's a chore, which is why, you know, keeping it to more of like an ADHD release schedule would have worked better for me. So, you know, while each individual episodes by themselves, editing them myself seemed like a huge chore, combining like episode 7 and 8 into a single release, you know, that made it seem like an almost insurmountable task. And I was very stressed. I was very stressed about, you know, making sure it came out decently. And even now, releasing Centroside 7, like that episode should have been way bigger, you know? Like, the original script was like 40 videos. And no, like I think I actually released like 30 or 40 videos. But the original script for Centroside 7, it was supposed to be something like 100 videos all interconnected. And it would have been a lot better organized, and it would have actually, like, I don't know, there would have been my unironic political ideology in there. But I literally cut my unironic political ideology that was there for time, which means now I've just got to anticlimactically say it at some point. At some point soon. Maybe 400k. Actually, yeah. 400,000 subscribers. My unironic political ideology. Tune in. Finally, now I know. Now I know his opinion on taxes. Should there be more taxes? Should there be less taxes? Another big regret I had was not using the web series to push the medium quite as much as I wanted to. So, for example, like, I could have used... what I wanted to do was make sure that as the web series progressed, there were noticeable changes happening to the videos that were released in between the web series. But that ended up being a little too complex to actually pull off. But I think if I had just planned it out ahead of time, then I could have done something that was a lot closer to that than I ended up happening. All right, to be clear, I'm being a negative Nelly here, but Centricide was probably the most creatively fulfilling thing I've ever done, and it was only possible because I got an audience recently that would watch it. So that was great, and I'm very grateful I had the opportunity to do it. So while there were little individual details that I regret, broad strokes, broad pictures, I'm quite content with how it turned out. Now, I think I should probably talk about the ending. So the last third of episode 8 was like the last part of it that I released. And I still have to release part 8 as a whole, and then part 8 in context with all the other parts, like Centricides 1 through 8, with all the little 0.5 episodes, like the mini episodes in between. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I think in context, that video, just with everything in context, will be good. And when people get to the end of it, you know, without the waits in between, it'll be sick. If you're working on a piece, maybe you've got a small audience, maybe you get like 4 comments, right? Criticism is valuable, but you're not always going to be in a good place to receive criticism. So what I recommend is screen cap the criticism, put it in a vault somewhere, and when you are emotionally, you know, feeling good enough, and you know, not hate but criticism, to like read criticism, then you can like read the criticism. But I also suggest you screen cap the good things that people are saying as well. You know, the reason you want to do better is not because you're shit, it's just because you can do better, and you're doing some things right and you're doing some things wrong. And that's just I hear running water from behind that door. The point is, distance yourself from criticism first. Don't attach your ego to your work. A lot of people put their ego into their work, so if the work is attacked, it feels like an attack against themselves or their ego. It's best to try to like disassociate your ego a little bit. I mean, I don't even know how much I feel attached to Drag as a YouTube channel, ego-wise, like how much of myself I feel is really wrapped up in it. And if someone says, you know, like, if someone says I don't like drag, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm right there with you, buddy. Which is weird, because I am drag, but I'm also not drag, you know? Maybe you don't. So listen, here's the grand lesson here, all right? Don't over-identify yourself with your art. It's tempting to do, right? Because then if people say, I love your art, then what they're really saying is that they love you. And then you're deserving of love. And that's a very tempting, tantalizing, delicious thing to lap up. But don't get that confused. You're not your art, fella. And if you do get that confused, then you're in trouble, because your job is not to be loved. Your job is to make art that people love. It's not about you, bucko. It's not about you. You're a product. You're a service. You're a capitalism, something, something, something. So listen, I'm saying that I made these mistakes not out of shame. Like, I'm not actually like, you know, I'm like, oh God, it was all for nothing because I made some mistakes. As a person, I am extremely self-critical. But as an artist, I feel like that's the only good part of my being. And I feel like, in terms of being an artist, I'm pretty much critical enough. Like, I don't think I'm overly critical as an artist. I think I'm definitely capable of, like, identifying where I went wrong and, like, what I can do differently next time. If you're wondering what's next for Centricide, no more broad story arcs or anything like that, but I do still have plenty of little scripts that just involve the characters interacting, right? And that's going to be a lot more fun for me to do because it's more self-contained. And it's going to be a lot more fun for people to watch because they don't have to keep up with a broad storyline. But if they do want to see the broad storyline stuff, then it's already done. So, biggity boom. Biggity boom. Maybe I'll make that a catchphrase. But you know, if any fans or anything want to tell broad stories using the characters, then, as I've said before, go wild, go crazy. You don't need Dreg anymore. He died. He died in a nuclear explosion, and now it's just me, Junior Egg. Should I jump? Alright, hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully other artists can find this interesting, you know, if they can relate in any way. Or maybe this just gives you some insight into what was going through my mind when I was doing the series. Now listen, being aware of mistakes doesn't mean that you're not going to make them again. And some things you work on, you learn from. And some things you think you learn from, and then you make those mistakes again. All this to say, I'm going to try not to make those mistakes again. But if I do, I will forgive myself. And I will move on. That being said, I won't make those mistakes again. That being said, if I do, I'll forgive myself and move on. Bit of a paradox. You'll allow yourself to fail. But it's not the end of the world. You can make mistakes. It's fine. You know, time keeps progressing at 1 second per second. Unless you're like ironically learning from the mistakes, which means you just like make them worse and worse. There's something to be said for that. Maybe artistically I could do some performance art where I say I learned from the mistakes, and then the next web series I do, there's just like a year between episodes. Now that would be funny. I'm soon gonna take a break, a little bit of a break, to try to distance myself from all this stuff that I've been doing recently. And hopefully when I come back I'll have most of a big project finished. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will. Who knows? Who knows? What an interesting video this is. Thank God I am done. I'm writing most of the words of this script while I'm working on Centricide 7. So I'm actually not done as I write the words of this script. I'm just reading them now. Please help me. I don't know what I'm doing.